Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. The Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung has won South Korea's June 3rd presidential election and become the country's 21st president. President Lee pledged to become a leader for all. President Lee kickstarted an emergency economic evaluation task force as his first executive order on Inauguration Day. He also named some of the key posts of his administration, including a new prime minister nominee. And leaders around the world were quick to congratulate President Lee Jae-myung and welcome the new South Korean government.
이제 우리는 모두 위대한 대한민국의 위대한 똑같은 대한국민들입니다. 함께 갑시다.
South Korea ushers in a brand new government, this time under liberal leadership. The Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung was elected to fill the months-long vacuum in presidential leadership. Now, President Lee vowed to become a leader for all, regardless of their political inclinations. Our Shin Ha-young begins our coverage.
나는 헌법을 준수하고 국가를 보위하며 조국의 평화적 통일과 국민의 자유와 복리의 증진 및 민족 문화의 창달에 노력하여 대통령으로서의 직책을 성실히 수행할 것을 국민 앞에 엄숙히 선서합니다.
President Lee Jae-myung took the oath at the National Assembly in a scaled-down inauguration on Wednesday, keeping the ceremony brief and focused as he started his term without a transition committee. In his inaugural speech, he emphasized national unity, which he has highlighted throughout his campaign, saying he will embrace everyone and be a president for all.
이제 출범하는 민주당 정권 이재명 정부는 정의로운 통합정부, 유연한 실용정부가 될 것입니다. 분열의 정치를 끝낸 대통령이 되겠습니다.
During the inauguration, he caught attention by wearing a red, white, and blue tie, symbolizing his message of unity across political affiliation. He pointed to reviving the domestic economy as one of the top priorities of his administration.
민생 회복과 경제 살리기부터 시작하겠습니다. 불황과 일전을 치른다는 각오로 비상경제 대응 TF를 곧바로 지금 즉시 가동하겠습니다.
Regarding his diplomatic policy, he emphasized pragmatic, national interest-focused diplomacy to turn the global economic and security challenges into opportunities that maximize national benefits.
굳건한 한미 동맹을 토대로 한미일 협력을 다지고 주변 국가의 관계도 국익과 실용의 관점에서 접근하겠습니다.
He also pledged to boost the nation's culture industries, stressing that culture is economic as well as global competitiveness.
대한민국의 문화산업을 더 크게 키우겠습니다. 적극적인 문화예술 지원으로 콘텐츠의 세계 표준을 다시 쓸 문화 강국, 글로벌 소프트 파워 5대 강국으로 도약할 것입니다.
After the inauguration, he had lunch at the National Assembly with Speaker Woo Won-sik and leaders from both the ruling and opposition parties, demonstrating his commitment to national unity from the very first day of his term. There, he expressed his hope that by making necessary concessions and compromises, policies that everyone agrees on can be created to help people live better lives.
Crowds gathered to witness history as Lee Jae-myung took office after winning the snap presidential election with 49.42% of the vote. And having consistently emphasized national unity, all eyes are now on how he will turn those words into action. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee got down to work right away at the presidential office in Yongsan. There, he tapped some of the key posts of his administration, including a new prime minister nominee. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
Day one of the Lee Jae-myung administration began at the break of dawn, with the new South Korean leader's duties beginning upon the National Election Commission's confirmation of his presidency. As he stepped out for his first commute from his home in Gyeonggo District, Incheon, Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung spent about 10 minutes shaking hands with supporters and expressing their gratitude. As per tradition for all newly elected leaders, President Lee made a visit to the Seoul National Cemetery to honor the nation's war dead and heroes before heading to the National Assembly for his inauguration ceremony. Despite his push to move the presidential office back to the palatial grounds of Cheongwade, undoing his predecessor's relocation to the city centre, Lee launched his administration in Yongsan. Awaiting his arrival, the flag bearing the presidential phoenix was once again raised as of early Wednesday. Staying true to his pledge to begin his duties straight away, the president personally announced his key appointments.
존경하는 국민 여러분, 지금 우리는 경제와 민생 회복 그리고 지속 가능한 성장의 토대를 다시 세워야 할 시점입니다. 저는 오늘 국민에 대한 충직함과 책임 그리고 실력을 갖춘 인사들과 함께 국민 주권 정부의 새 출발을 시작합니다.
In a briefing to reporters, Lee named four-time lawmaker Kim Min-seok as Prime Minister nominee and as National Intelligence Service Director, former Unification Minister Lee Jong-seok, who's an experienced negotiator and policy expert in inter-Korean relations. These two positions require parliamentary approval. However, senior aides working directly with the president assumed their positions right away, without a separate vetting process. Lee appointed as his chief presidential secretary lawmaker Kang Won-sik, one of the key strategists behind his election campaigns. Former ambassador to Russia Wi Song-rak now heads the National Security Office as National Security Advisor. Former Army General Hwang In-kwon leads the Presidential Security Service, tasked with protecting the president and his family. Professor-turned-politician Kang Yoo-jung has become the presidential spokesperson. As for future ministerial appointments, President Lee said he would like to take his time to gather opinions from the public, the ruling and opposition parties and members of the media. He further said restructuring the presidential office won't happen today or tomorrow, as his administration will focus first on emergency measures for economic recovery. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Rebooting the country's economy has long been among President Lee's top priorities throughout his campaign period. He made his first executive order by launching an emergency task force to address urgent economic challenges and improve the daily lives of people. Our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korea's newly elected president Lee Jae-myung is swiftly moving to deliver on a key campaign pledge, revival of the economy. His spokesperson announced on Wednesday that President Lee had signed his first executive order.
On June 4, 2025, his first day in office, President Lee Jae-myung signed his first executive order, calling for the establishment of an emergency economic task force.
This comes as growth projections for South Korea's economy have been revised downward by both domestic and foreign institutions. The Bank of Korea just last week slashed its GDP growth forecast for this year to 0.8% from 1.5% in its economic outlook report. And the OECD on Tuesday lowered South Korea's 2025 growth forecast to 1%, down 0.5 percentage points from its earlier projection. While it is yet unclear who will take on the dual role of finance and deputy prime minister, the appointee is expected to lead the task force in overseeing pressing economic issues. This includes overseeing a planned economic supplementary budget amounting to 30 trillion won or $22 billion to boost domestic demand. But as the ruling Democratic Party is expected to maintain a majority in the National Assembly for the next 3 years until the 2028 general election, the new administration is likely to face fewer hurdles in carrying out its policy agenda. The new administration will also have to navigate high-stakes negotiations with the Trump administration. Korea and the U.S. held high-level trade talks in April where the two countries agreed to reach a comprehensive agreement dubbed the July Package by July 8th, the day that the 90-day pause on Trump's reciprocal tariff rates on foreign nations is set to expire. The Ministry of Economy and Finance is also expected to be restructured as Lee, since his candidacy, has pledged to transfer the Finance Ministry's budgeting role to a separate body. The ministry currently oversees both economic policy and budget allocation, but Lee argues this concentrates too much power in one place. The separation of the budgeting function is expected to allow other ministries to gain more autonomy and accountability over their spending, while allowing the finance ministry to focus more on coordinating overall economic policy. 이수진, Arirang News.
And the entire world also closely followed the election results. The U.S. and the EU were among the first to congratulate President Lee Jae-myung and welcome the new South Korean government. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Lee Jae-myung became South Korea's new leader, and countries around the world have been issuing responses over Lee's win. Asked by a local media outlet to give the U.S.'s view on South Korea's newly elected president, a White House official reaffirmed that the U.S.-ROK alliance remains ironclad on Tuesday local time. Yet it added that, quote, while South Korea had a free and fair election, the United States remains concerned and opposed to Chinese interference and influence in democracies around the world. Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, also reaffirmed the two countries' shared commitment to the alliance, which is grounded in the Mutual Defense Treaty, shared values, and deep economic ties. Rubio emphasized how the two countries are modernizing the alliance to meet the demands of today's strategic environment and address new economic challenges. He also highlighted the need for three-way cooperation with Japan, adding the U.S. will continue to deepen trilateral cooperation to bolster regional security, enhance economic resilience, and defend shared democratic principles. This follows the Pentagon's response, with spokesperson Major Pete Nguyen reaffirming the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of South Korea and the bilateral alliance. Meanwhile, the president of the European Council posted a congratulatory message on X on Wednesday after President Lee's term officially began. While congratulating Lee's win, he emphasized how the EU looks forward to deepening a strategic partnership with South Korea as a key ally over a shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, and as the EU highly values South Korea's global role. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Now, let us rewind to the election day. The final election results showed a closer gap than the exit polls, but still a commanding win for Lee Jae-myung. Our Choi Soo-hyung wraps up the key moments from the vote count.
The Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung won the 21st presidential election with a final vote share of 49.4%. His main rival Kim Wonsu of the People Power Party finished with 41.2%, while Lee Jun-seok of the Reform Party got 8.3%. The vote counting began around 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday and finished about 8 hours and 30 minutes later, around 5 a.m. on Wednesday. A joint exit poll by broadcasters KBS, SBS and NBC, released right after voting ended, showed Lee leading with 51.7% ahead of Kim Wonsu, who had 39.3%, a large gap of about 12 percentage points. However, the actual results showed a gap of around 8%. About 2.5 hours after counting began, around 11 p.m., Lee's victory started to look very likely. Around 40 minutes later, it became almost certain, and by 2:30 a.m. on Wednesday, about 6 hours after counting began, Lee was confirmed as the winner with 48.8% of the votes counted at that time. Lee Jae-myung won a landslide victory in the southwest, including liberal strongholds like Gwangju and Jeollanam-do province, earning an average of more than 84% of the vote. In the capital city Seoul, one of the key battlegrounds, he won more than 47% of the vote. He also secured the most votes in Gyeonggi-do province, Sejong, Incheon, and Jeju Island. Meanwhile, Kim Wonsu of the People Power Party took the most votes in conservative strongholds like Daegu and Gyeongsangbuk-do province. With this win, Lee Jae-myung overcame the pain of losing the 19th and 20th presidential elections and has now been elected as the president of South Korea. Choi Hyung, Arirang News.
In fact, less than 3 hours after the vote counting began, Lee's victory was already looking assured. President Lee declared his victory just past midnight on Wednesday, and he couldn't stress conquering insurrection enough. Our Park Hyo-bin reports.
President Lee Jae-myung delivered a victory speech on Wednesday, where he said he would not forget the mission entrusted to him and promised to carry it out faithfully. In his remarks as his first mission, Lee said he would be overcoming what he described as an insurrection. The DP has been calling former President Yoon Suk-yeol's brief imposition of martial law an act of insurrection that undermined the constitutional order.
여러분이 저에게 맡기신 첫 번째 사명, 내란을 확실히 극복하고 다시는 국민이 맡긴 총칼로 국민을 겁박하는 군사 쿠데타는 없게 하는 일, 이 나라의 민주주의를 회복하고 민주공화정 그 공동체 안에서 우리 국민들이 주권자로서 존중받고 증오, 혐오가 아니라 인정하고 협력하면서 함께 살아가는 그런 세상을 만드는 것, 반드시 그 사명에 따라서 지켜내겠습니다.
Lee stressed that presidential power comes from the people. He also reaffirmed his commitment to reviving the economy and improving people's livelihoods. Among his pledges, he called for a peaceful and coexistent Korean peninsula. During his speech, Lee reiterated his commitment to national unity, a message he has constantly emphasized throughout his campaign.
잠시 다투었지라도 우리를 지지하지 않은 그분들도 대한민국 국민들입니다. 입장이 다르고 생각이 다르고 다른 색깔의 옷을 잠시 입었을지라도 이제 우리는 모두 위대한 대한민국의 위대한 똑같은 대한국민들입니다. 함께 갑시다.
On Tuesday, Lee remained at his home in Incheon's Gyeonggu district, even during the announcement of the exit polls, which projected him to win with 51.7% of the vote. But once his victory became more certain, he left to visit the party's main headquarters to thank party members. He then headed to Yeouido, where the party held a public event attended by party members and supporters who gathered to watch the vote count together. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
And People Power Party's Kim Wonsu had to suffer the bitter failure and accept the loss. Now, Kim kept his acceptance speech short and brief. Our Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
After staying quiet throughout Election Day, the People Power Party's candidate Kim Wonsu accepted defeat at around 1:35 a.m. on Wednesday. He had arrived around 10 minutes before, but decided to wait until the winner, Lee Jae-myung, finished his victory speech down the street. Taking the mic, he thanked his supporters, congratulated Lee, and kept it short.
I thank those who fought alongside me. Korea, under any challenge, takes great leaps forward through the power of its people. I thank those who supported me despite my shortcomings.
After wrapping up, he didn't take any questions but shook hands with the camp members and the media and left the briefing room. The media had been waiting since early in the evening for Kim to emerge and concede defeat, right after the exit polls came out, which forecast that Kim would lose by a double-digit figure. With that, the campaign leadership, who gathered at the Situation Room set up in the National Assembly Library, remained quiet, and many of them soon left the Situation Room. Only PPP lawmaker and former primary contestant An Chol-soo remained in his seat past midnight along with another contestant, Yang Hyang-ja. For some in the campaign, the exit polls were shocking as they believed that a comeback was made during the past 22 days. The campaign, still grappling with the fallout from the martial law declaration and the impeachment of former President Yoon Suk-yeol, tried to carefully balance its message, aiming not to upset Yoon and the party's loyal base, while also reaching out to undecided voters by creating some distance from Yoon. In addition, it targeted Lee Jae-myung's legal risks to create an anti-Lee Jae-myung coalition. While in the end, Kim did narrow the gap to a single digit, it wasn't enough. 김도현, Arirang News.
South Korea will now be in the hands of a brand new government led by President Lee Jae-myung. Now, President Lee has come a long way from a human rights lawyer to a well-grounded politician. He is now in the top office to look after South Korea for the next 5 years. Who is Lee Jae-myung? Here's a brief of the 61-year-old so far.
We didn't even grow up with a dirt spoon. We came from a family with no spoon at all. As you can see, that kind of background has brought a lot of pain to our family.
Even his biggest critics won't be able to deny that Lee Jae-myung, the newly elected president of South Korea, is self-made. Lee, who is 61 years old, was born in Andong as the fifth of 7 children. Facing severe financial hardship, he inflated his age to work in factories and suffered from industrial accidents, one leaving his arm permanently disabled and exempting him from military service. Despite this, he studied on his own to pass middle and high school equivalency exams, later earning a college scholarship. The year he graduated, he also passed South Korea's notoriously difficult bar exam, setting him on the path to become a human rights lawyer. And his background as an underage labor and human rights lawyer heavily influenced his political career, which began as the city of Seongnam's mayor in 2010 and drove its focus on policies addressing social conflict and inequality.
Lee Jae-myung identified polarization and significant disparity is the root cause of the social conflicts. So he suggests artificial intelligence and maybe renewable energy and cultural content industry. He suggests to maintain our growth, to reduce our social division.
After gaining attention for his bold progressive policies as mayor, he went on to become the governor of Gyeonggi-do province, which expanded his political base and helped launch his presidential runs. Although he narrowly lost to former President Yoon Suk-yeol by just 0.73 percentage points in 2022, one of the tightest races in Korean history, Yoon's failed attempt to invoke martial law later paved the way for Lee's ultimately successful bid this year. But while his rags to riches story inspired many, the nation's deep political divide was laid bare when he was stabbed by an assailant posing as a supporter last year. With polarization remaining a pressing issue, Lee's emphasis on the importance of unity throughout the campaign signals and national cohesion will be a key theme of his presidency.
One of our biggest challenges is achieving social unity. This is essential to restoring livelihoods, reviving the economy, and building a democracy where everyone shares opportunities and hope.
이수진, 아리랑 뉴스.
요새 쉬었음 청년들이 굉장히 사회 문제로 대두되고 있는데 그 부분에 대한 해결이 가장 먼저 이루어져야 될 거라고 생각합니다.
저는 일단 각자가 말하는 정책에 대해서 집중하고 그래도 5년이라는 길다면 길고 짧다면 짧은 시간 동안 본인이 말하는 거에 대해서 잘 지켜가는 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
기후와 관련해서는 조금 더 재생에너지나 뭐 이런 쪽에 조금 더 관심을 가지고 탈원전 정책에 조금 더 관심을 가지는 그런 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
대학 서열화를 끝내고 그리고 사교육 시장을 줄이는 방향으로 좀 더 평등한 교육 정책을 위해서 애써야 되지 않나 이런 생각을 갖고 있습니다.
누가 돼도 상관은 없지만 그 공약을 하셨더라면 하나라도 지켜주는 게 있었으면 좋겠어요. 아무래도 자영업 쪽에 있다 보니까 자영업자 쪽에 조금 더 신경을 써줬으면 좋을 것 같아요.
일단 기본적으로 주거 안정이 좀 제대로 이루어졌으면 하는 바람입니다.
없는 분들을 좀 생각해서 서로가 나눔의 실천을 했으면 좋겠어요.
아무래도 제가 이제 30대 초반이다 보니까 이제 결혼 이런 관련해서 정책들이 물론 지금도 잘 나오고 있는 것 같은데 아직도 청년들이 좀 결혼을 준비하는 데 있어서 어려움을 겪고 있기 때문에 결혼 문제에 있어서 좀 이제 정책 같은 것도 좀 더 많이 완화되고 대출 규제라든지 이런 것들 많이 좀 풀어졌으면 좋겠다라는 생각이 있습니다.
That brings an end to our weekly news highlights. Thanks for watching.